this. Hi, Joshua. He's definitely muted. I can see him waving his hand. I don't know.
Hey, sorry
there it
that,
is.
Guys. Technical difficulties. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Zach. My apologies.
Not a problem. It is great to see you again. I see behind you, when I saw it when you got up earlier, the really cool chair you have behind you. Is that a gamer chair? Is Joshua Lastine a gamer?
To comment.
So I have two gamer chairs. Let me preface this. I'm not a gamer, but I love playing Pokemon. I have every single Pokemon game. I still play them to this day. I have the most recent one. So in that sense, I'm a gamer, if you want to call it that. But I have two of these gamer racer style chairs, and they are the most comfortable chairs for just generally working in that I've ever sat in. So not a gamer by profession or trade, but I have two of these chairs.
Pokemon gamers are absolutely gamers. Make no mistake.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We are gamer inclusive around here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're right about gamer chairs being. I'm amazed that when you go to high profile law firms, that they don't just have the most comfortable chairs possible. Because if you're expecting somebody to bill, thousands of hours a year, give them a great chair. And I agree with you.
Just you guys wait. Zach, Ryan, when I build my office here in LA, the new one, I'll invite you in. I'm going to get one of those like spaceship sit back chairs where they bring the screens right to you. Because we're in our chair. I'm in this chair 14 hours a day. So you got to be comfortable.
I love that. Yes, I would very much like to tour your office and get like the whole. I just love the idea of like everyone at your office having the gamer chairs, and just when break time comes, like everybody can just immediately get into a game of Call of Duty, like that episode of The Office.
Yeah.
I will admit, Josh, we're all lawyers around here, and on this show we tend to lean more music law, although we certainly love film and TV as well. And that's why we love talking to you, because you can give us that film and TV perspective. And the timing that we have you on is huge, because film and TV law is a little busy at the moment, especially with the WGA strike that's going on right now, and potentially SAG-AFTRA joining in this strike. It could be very disruptive on film and television and the shows and programs and movies that we all watch. Can you give us a little bit of your assessment of where things are currently standing in the strike and how far apart the sides are?
Yeah, Ryan. Things in Hollywood are looking pretty bleak at the moment. The WGA, the AMPA have come to try to meet resolutions. The WGA had put their offer on the table, and instead of counter-offering, the Producers Guild kind of just said, no deal. We're not accepting. As far as I know, there have been no material talks or any advances forward yet. It is sort of, encouraging that the DGA came to an agreement almost right away to avoid a strike, but all eyes are on SAG right now. I think we're very much, looking towards June 30th as the date as the collective bargaining agreement for the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, is set to expire. The actors have already authorized a strike. So preemptively speaking, a lot of the productions that I've been working on have started to slow down. Phone calls have started to slow down. So the landscape or prospects of coming to a quick or speedy resolution aren't looking good. That being said, the last strike was 90 days, a significant amount of time, but we all eventually got back to work and everything eventually got back to normal. So I am hopeful for a resolution towards, probably the end of summer, early fall.
What are the biggest sticking points right now? Is it money? Is it AI?
So I think AI is an existential threat, and I think it's a threat that the studios don't know how quite to address right now, and I think we're all start kind of figuring it out. I think that is a big sticking point, but I also think it is the money. In 6-7 years time, I started practicing in 2014. There was like 500 shows on television. Now there's upwards of 1,000 new original programming on television per year. Those are a number of new writers that have gotten, sort of jobs or staffed on shows. But the senior writers at top, there aren't 500 new showrunners for those 500 new shows. Senior writing staff has kind of stayed consistently the same. And the fact that you've had, TV shows that are now, not going past season 1, not going past season 2, instead of having 24 or 12 episodes, they're now going down to 6 or sometimes even 4 episodes. That all stifles a writer's career and stifles how much they can make on a potential project. So it's kind of a little more granular than just what the money is, but how they're treated, how long they're employed, how long they have guaranteed work, and if that money is enough to stretch them from season to season, or if there is potentially, just a 1-season show, is it enough money to stretch until they find that next show?
Yeah, I can't help but notice that, some similarities between this strike that's happening right now and the last WGA strike in 07-08, which, gosh, wasn't that long ago. I can't believe we're back on this merry-go-round again. Like, we can't do labor disputes every 15 years. That stinks. But I think, back in 2007, I remember that a big part of that strike was all about the rise of streaming video. And that was the new technology and internet and figuring out how we were going to cut the pie there. And now we have the new technology, which is AI, and we have to figure out how we're going to reconcile that in the industry. So I would imagine that just like we're going to see this every time there's just a new piece of technology that has the potential to be disruptive in film and television.
I don't think AI is only going to be disruptive to film and TV. I think we're going to see a lot of these strikes and movements across the board as AI starts to be more prolific. The thing that really scares me about AI in terms of the Writers Guild, or as it relates to writers, is it really does replace kind of, the entry level writing position, sort of the staff writer and or sort of assistants within the writer's room itself, the people who would be going out and collecting research, synthesizing information, taking people's writing samples and editing them and doing some of those more remote-ish tasks. Those are really kind of, the stepping stones in the writer's room in terms of leveling up from a staff writer to a story editor to an executive story editor, and then eventually making your way on to producer and so forth. So, they are, the writers are very smart, very intelligent for getting out ahead of this AI thing, especially as it could potentially place a lot of those lower level jobs. I think we can all attest that the writing in Hollywood has been a little lackluster for a couple of years now. The last thing we need is something that's going to, disrupt the careers of future writers in the future.
Do you have any assessment, like any thought, or like, have you heard like what the WGA is proposing with respect to AI? Like, what are they asking of the production companies with respect to AI? Just, you're not allowed to use it. No logging on to Chat GPT while we're in the room, or have they talked about specific reforms that they want to see?
I think that there are specific reforms, and I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but some of them, or at least the spirit of them, is that a writer can't be replaced by AI, and so that they wouldn't be purchasing or sort of using a screenplay based off of AI and then hiring a writer to then punch that up, and then setting minimum number of writers within a writer's room that would then hopefully qualm the problem of needing AI. If you have, minimum of 6 writers in the room, someone's got to be the person that collects research and kind of does some more of that, quote unquote grunt work.
Oh, Zach, have you seen any of the signs that the striking WGA writers have been like holding up? That to me, like, has been like, obviously it sucks that we're going through this labor dispute, but we're seeing some of the best writing in Hollywood just from these signs that the WGA writers are holding up. Like, I saw a sign somebody put up that said, Chat GPT doesn't have childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we are talking to some of the most creative people in America. Like, it's like whenever you heckle a comedian, I go, that's never going to go well for you. They have a microphone and a sense of humor, and they're going to crush you. Putting news cameras on writers is going to create some hilarity. So
I think this is why the DGA didn't strike, honestly. They're like, we can't compete.
We can't do
like,
this.
These guys are spitting fire right now. Like, we'd hire writers to make our signs better, but we can't. They're on strike.
They're gone.
Um, yeah. So
Joshua,
yeah,
go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead. Sorry.
You're good.
Joshua, I'm very excited to talk to you because I've actually shout out your website's amazing. If you guys want to see what a lawyer website should look like, go to your website. It's fantastic. But one of the things that I'm interested in as going through this is we're talking about these different levels of writers and that eventually ascend to producers, right? And almost like, how do these writers ultimately level up their career, and what threat is being posed to them? Is there a threat that they can't level up their career anymore because of these things? Is that why they're striking? How does this happen? That's a very vague question.
Yeah, no. It was a great question. And to tell it requires a little bit of history, and thankfully we're all old enough to remember, but maybe some of your audiences aren't old enough to remember. But remember television when it used to run in 24 episode sort of spans on, I mean, and they still do this to network television, right, to a certain degree, but who watches that anymore? Just kidding. But really though, the main, sort of MO for a television series is that you had 12 to 14 episode front orders. They would run from, late August, early September through end of Thanksgiving, right before the Christmas season, right? And then you have all the Christmas specials. And then everyone would come back and there'd be another 12 to 14 episodes that would air from February through mid-March, April, May, so to speak, right? Almost ran the same seasons as school. And those TV shows would go, a good TV show would go 3, 5, 6, sometimes 10 seasons. And the writers who are engaged on season 1, they usually are engaged under option deals. Under those option agreements, the studio has the right to call those writers back for additional seasons. So under the old regime, when you had 24 episodes, 5, 6 seasons per show, a writer knew that they had a steady paying gig. They could hopefully at least hope that show is coming back and they have a steady gig from season to season, and that those 24 episodes, whether they're being paid on a weekly basis or paid on an episodic basis, the money from those 24 episodes would be enough to last them either till the next season, or if the show got canceled, it would give them enough buffer to go out and find a new show. Okay. That's under the old way of doing things. Now, when shows are only one season, you may hire a staff writer for that one show, and it may be that one show that the writer ever works on. They may not be able to go out and do another show if they were hired to write for a very particular style of show, and, luck of the draw, they just can't move on. Or even if they can move on, they're not maybe necessarily moving on to a higher level position. They're not being sort of promoted. They're just being engaged at the same level. And so again, kind of under the old regime, under the old option agreements, it was at least assumed that if the studio brought you back for those additional seasons, you would be sort of elevated in your title. Your deal would go from a staff writer in year 1 to a story editor in year 2 to an executive story editor in year 3.
Oh, Zach,
now,
Josh. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Dude.
Now you got one season, you got one chance, you got one show, you got 6 episodes. A lot of times it's just the showrunner, like a David E. Kelly type, that writes everything, and you don't even need most of the other writers. So that is where it's sort of stifling or sort of capping sort of junior or baby writers.
Oh, Zach, Joshua is making me miss 90s and earlier television. I mean, as a Star Trek fan in particular, we got like 200 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation over 7 seasons. Like now, like Star Trek Picard, 3 seasons, 10 episodes. That was like 1 season of like what they used to do with Star Trek The Next Generation. I mean, it was probably brutal on the actors. Like they got, like it was way too, they probably all got overworked and stuff. But like, oh God, I miss if you have a favorite show, you get to watch 150, 200 episodes of it. And they just don't do that anymore.
Is that a product of there being so many shows that I mean, to me, this seems analogous to the record industry, right? Like when you have a million bands, they're looking for the big hit, and they're not going to roll the dice on multiple episodes unless something, or multiple seasons, unless something just crushes. Like, unless you're Stranger Things, you're gone. Is that the environment we're living in right now?
Yeah, very much so. And even if it does crush it, there are other thoughts and other metrics. If it does really well in the United States, that's great. But, Netflix has topped out its subscriber growth in the United States. Does it play well in Brazil? Does it play well in India? Because those are going to be ancillary revenue streams and or more subscriptions for the particular service. So yeah, it is about them trying to find, the budgets have ballooned. The budgets have skyrocketed and have gone up so much that they really kind of have to hit them out of the park. And they're trying, to bring in a lot of this too is motion picture people coming over and doing television. We now have Tim Burton, doing TV.
Right.
Yeah.
It's more competitive than it's ever been.
Wow. It's definitely wild. And obviously we see the parallels and just sort of the cause and effect between these labor disputes and, the way that these different stakeholder groups have to interact with each other and the difference it makes in terms of the tangible product that we all see in film and television. Like, you can draw a line between these labor disputes and the labor relations and just the state of, industry consolidation to why seasons are only 8 to 13 episodes, why your favorite show is only on the air for 2 seasons. And maybe I saw a commenter wrote this just now where, like, a show might get pulled after its second season, not because people don't love it, but just because the streaming service doesn't want to pay for that 4th and 5th season that are going to be more expensive because of the contract they negotiated or the union provisions that are in there. Or what we're seeing now with is it HBO or Max or whatever they're calling it, where you're seeing the platform actually take catalog shows off of the streaming service, like shows that the show's already done. They're not even making new episodes, but you can't even watch those old episodes because they're taking them off the service because they don't want to have to pay the residuals and the royalties that would come to all those writers groups and everything else. Like, I find a lot of that problematic, and it does seem to get in the way of what could be a much more enjoyable film and TV experience for fans.
Yeah, and I always say, if you want to be the next Netflix, you want to beat Netflix, you want to beat Amazon, you want to beat Apple, everyone's going to have their own silos of content. Everyone's going to have their own monopolies of IP. If you want to watch Game of Thrones, you got to go to HBO, right? If you want to watch Marvel, you got to go to Disney. Not one of those competitors is going to have a leg up really from one another. It's really about building a better mousetrap and getting consumers to have the best experience with your entertainment product. They're the ones that are going to eke out ahead.
Without a doubt. So let's drift from labor disputes and everything, because that's, it's important, but I think it's making us all a little depressed. I do want to talk to you about a subject area that I know you love to talk about, and I think is useful for our audience of independent creators to hear about. You've often led sessions on this idea of how to ask for more and not be a jerk about it. Yeah, I see Zach pointing. Like Zach saw this topic.
Pay attention.
Yeah, because indie creators and those who work with them, like, we're often plagued with this reluctance to want to ask for more, to fight for every ounce of what we're worth. Like, we don't want to make waves. We don't want to bother people. We want to stay in the game, and we don't want people to think, oh, this person's too much of a problem. We're just going to get rid of them and find somebody who's going to make fewer waves. But you speak a lot on this idea of how you can ask for more while still being somebody that people want to have in the room. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, and I'll tell it by kind of giving you an anecdote. One thing that I like to do every year is I pick a subject and I try to read as many books as I can about that one subject. And one year I sat down and I read, 50 books about negotiation, persuasion, sales, and really, getting your worth. And across every single book, it kept referencing this anecdote or this story. It was a study, I can't remember out of what journal or whatever, but, out of 1,000 tries, out of 1,000 applicants, you're standing in front of a printer. If you ask the person in front of you, hey, can I budge you? 80% of the time, they'll just say yes. Again, in this, antiquated study or whatever. If you have a good reason, that number jumps up to like 95% yes. And even if you have a bad reason, the likelihood of success is still pretty high. When I am negotiating things, when people leave things off the table, it's usually because they didn't ask. And it's that asking, it's uncomfortable, but it's knowing your worth and knowing that you want to bring your best performance, your best self, your best work to the table, and knowing that the other side wants and or expects that of you too. So for both parties' sake, for both parties getting what they want, it's just better to be upfront. I talk about radical honesty. Talk about what it is that you're out for. What are you looking to get? What is your win? What is your end zone dance? Because it may be completely different from that of the person you're negotiating across the table from. You're not adversaries. Most of the time when you're working with somebody, you're collaborating with somebody, you're contracting with somebody, you have a long relationship ahead of you. The contract is the beginning of the marriage. So laying your cards out on the table, setting expectations, asking for what you want, not being a jerk about it, but the squeaky wheel really does get the grease. And then, going out and again, trying to find advocates on your behalf, getting an agent or manager or an attorney. Obviously, not everyone is lucky enough to get those things, but truly, I negotiate a lot with artists that are unrepresented, and in the most dangerous thing is just not asking or not knowing to ask.
So it sounds like a lot of what is often left on the table is not for lack of what that person could get, because, in terms of what their leverage is or what their talents are, but just out of a reluctance to ask for it, or maybe just an ignorance of what to ask for, or just, fear. But, as your study noted, that fear is often unfounded. If you ask for more, if you ask for what you're worth, it's not going to torpedo the relationship most of the time. And as you noted, it might actually help the relationship going forward. If you're honest about what's going to make you happy in this relationship and you get that, you two are going to get along much better after the deal is done, because now everybody's happier, as opposed to feeling like it was a zero-sum game and you didn't do well in that negotiation, and now you're stuck in a deal that you're unhappy in. The person on the other side of the table, in that sense, Joshua, seems to have an interest in giving you what you want, even if it's more, because they'd rather work with somebody happy going forward.
Yeah, I don't dabble enough in music, but I'll relate it to, one of my actresses, she's got allergies to peanuts and cashews and things of that nature. One of the first times we were negotiating the deals, she didn't tell me about this allergy. Months later, I find out that, it wasn't accommodated for her on set, and it was because she never told me and we never asked. It didn't become something of an issue, but it could have been something where, producer loses their lead talent for a couple of days of filming because no one alerted anyone about a peanut allergy. So it's not being difficult. It is standing up, knowing what you're worth, and articulating your wants and needs to the other side.
I love that. We have a commenter who just wrote in, pretty cool question here. How would you balance standing up to what you're worth versus respecting that the other person is asking for what they're worth? This is probably a question you have to ask yourself in every entertainment negotiation you've ever done.
Yeah, every single time I get into a negotiation, I always try to think, what is the other side after? What is their end zone? And what is my end zone, and how can we find a way that we can make both of our end zones, just get to that 50-50 line, right? And there may not always be an answer that is intuitive. What some of my best deal making, I just have a spark of inspiration on how do we I call it King Solomon. How do we King Solomon this baby? And And it really is, you got to do it respectfully, you got to do it professionally, and you got to do it open and honestly, and you got to know that it's not personal, and that it's literally just business, and it's a vehicle to get you from where you are, which is having an idea to create something, whether it's a song, a movie, blah, blah blah blah, to actually seeing that thing through fruition.
You can
And
find.
one of the things I always say is, again, the contract is the beginning of the marriage. If you're too afraid to ask at the outset, if the person on the other side is so scary or so much of a psycho that you can't even ask them for something up front, why the heck are you getting into bed with them anyway? Sometimes no deal is better than a bad deal.
Wow, that is powerful. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting LastineEntertainmentLaw.com. Our guest has been entertainment industry lawyer and professor Joshua Lastine. We always learn so much from having him on the show, and we hope that there's a lot more of these appearances going forward, because we really love chatting with you. Before we let you go, one last question, sir. Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
Build your personal brand. In 2023, it's all about building your personal brand and subtleties out the door. When all eyes are on, 5 billionaires in a scuba tank somewhere, in the ocean, and we got thousands of layoffs and unionizations across Starbucks and the postal service and stuff. Subtlety is out the window in 2023. Build your personal brand. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and find your voice, find your brand.
Awesome. Joshua, thank you so much for being on the show this week. Don't be a stranger, okay? We'd love to have you on again real soon.
Thanks, Zach. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.